I'm here with Anahida Taneja from Shine. First of all, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So, could you please tell me what your favorite work in your booth is?
I love the work of Taiba Begum Lippi. She's one of the leading contemporary artists from Bangladesh, and she works primarily with these fabricated razor blades which talk about domestic violence on women in Dhaka, on Muslim women in Dhaka. And then she constructs these everyday objects that are used by women to talk about, her practice and the message she wants to put across.
That's actually quite profound. What do you like about the work?
There's the way she kind of molds it, and she makes it look very beautiful, but actually the inner meaning is very different.
Deeper, significant
yes.
words, I think.
So like how we look at things in life is very beautiful on the surface of it, but when you go deeper, there are always different meanings behind the work.
That's actually quite profound. So tell me, are there any other works that you like in your booth?
I love Nandita Kumar's work, which is like an installation made out of copper etchings. And her work is very interesting. We're showing her for the first time and at the fair. But she works with actually a lot of data collection. She talks about a lot of environmental issues in her practice, where she links up plants, water, and ecology together. And she's been sort of doing a lot of research with the Stanford Research Unit and sort of created this entire data of the sun, like sounds of the sun and the earth. And then she's put that together as notations and built in several sound frequencies with each notation and put it as part of one installation.
And what do you think that work signifies?
I think every artist has their own vision in terms of their practice and the concerns that they want to deal with, and hers is environmental. So whether it's neglected plants that could be our future foods, or it could be our future medicines, which are not being looked at. She wants to go deeper into that, understanding it, and to further kind of talk about it through her work and practice.
As a primary gallery, how did you choose these artists for display?
So, a lot of our artists at Shrine Empire are based out of South Asia, and they work with different media and material to create their works. And what I think excites us is that, a lot of the practices are very heavily researched and very original in terms of, what they want to say, what they want to talk about with their practices. And we see that and we kind of select our artists.
Are there any other galleries you particularly liked at India Art Fair this year?
I like Vadera Art Galleries both. I love some of their artists, and it's always great to see whatever
Which works strike out of Vadera?
I really like the Atul Dodia, the Shutter series, which is up there currently, and they're having a fantastic Sudeep Patwardhan show at the gallery, and it's definitely a must visit.
Sorry to backtrack a little bit, but what did you like about the Atul Dodia Shutter? Alvidera.
I've always liked the three-dimensionality and within works and practice that the artists are being able to create. A lot of that is also amongst the practices of our own artists at the gallery, whether it's Taiba Begum Lippi, which is sculptural in nature, whether it's Anoli Pereira's chair work, where she uses these installations to create, again, what she wants to speak about, or whether it's Nandita's. I think when artists sort of go beyond the two-dimensionality of works, I think it becomes more interesting. It becomes conversation pieces at home.
So what is something you've seen at India Art Fair that has surprised you?
Got the point.
I think what's exciting is, when you go into the foundation section, and a lot of the foundations have created, we also run Pramay Art Foundation, which is our not-for-profit initiative that we do. And we've specially commissioned Devdeep Gupta, who would won the Discover series last year, to do this commission for the art fair. And it's a collaborative between the art fair and our foundation. And it's a six-channel sound installation. The idea is that, when the art fair brings together works that are not for profit and not commercial within a commercial space, I think it creates an interesting conversation.
It's a balance as well. Then
it is.
Reducing the commercialization of Indian art.
I think it's good that, that is there. The fact that, Indian art is doing very well globally, and people, international collectors have been looking at South Asian art, talking about it, wanting to buy the works. Institutions have been looking at it, showcasing them. I mean, there have been shows in Met and MoMA and various others at Tate. And I think that just shows how, the Indian art and Indian contemporary art is progressing.
That's true. And with all of these ideas in mind, what has been your biggest takeaway from India Art Fair 2025?
I think India Art Fair, has always taken risks, and they've done that. They've done the same this time around, supporting non-commercial projects, getting design into the fair, and of course, and all the leading galleries that are here. Whether it's from India or internationally, and I think all that kind of brings different aspects together, making the fair an interesting space for diverse audience.
And there's a couple of works that I should talk about behind
Yeah.
us. Let's cut to that.
Great.
Okay, which works do you like the most out of all of these?
I can speak about Neerja's work. Practice very interesting. I can speak about Baran.
What is
whichever
Neerja's
one you
practice?
want. So her
In this contemporary day and age, many people are against abstraction. What do you have to say to that, and how does this work kind of bend that concept?
I think as time is evolving, a lot of people's tastes have also kind of moved towards abstraction, which is very interesting. And it's very interesting how the artists, sort of work around that concept with that. So with what you see here is Neerja Kothari's work, and she had gone through a motor sensory neuropathy issue where she had to retune her brain to remember every moment of her body again. So simple things like, sort of touching her toe or just moving her hand up and down. She had to do it again and again for her brain to remember it. So she sort of got inspired by her own, what she went through physically, and brought that into her practice. So here she tries to quantify the unquantifiable. So whether it's a breath or whether it's a movement, whether it's birds flying, she quantifies it with numbers. So all her works are titled with the numbers, or say lines, or number of dots, or number of dashes that she puts in the work. And this particular work, there's like 100 lines and there's a blue pause. And that means it's a way of sort of restarting again. The way she has to keep restarting the process of physical rehabilitation, on a day-to-day basis. And this work is, say, about 19,300 lines to make it. And that's how she titles it as well.
So what do you think Neerja tries to tell her audience through the work?
I think her work and the process is very meditative. It's a way of healing. It's a way of, for her to kind of be able to constantly sort of get back into her memory, trying to remember whether it's her movement, whether it's, a certain form, whether it's gestures. It's also a way of quantifying it, but also a way for the memory to remember it.
Let's now talk about this wonderful work by Baran. Could you please explain this a bit to us?
Sure. So Baran actually has started this new series of work, and this one is called Safiya and Her Daughters, and this is called Amjadi and Her Sons. And it's actually these conversations that she's had with her nani and her dadi, like her grandparents, and she's brought that into her work. She also talks about the fact that how we don't really have these conversations with our grandparents in terms of what they did at their time, and maybe the lives that they led and what went through, maybe, during partition, and what their families went through and what did they do. So, there's a lot of conversation sometimes around maybe what your grandfather did. But are we also asking our grandmothers what they did at that time?
The erasure of their opinions in history.
Sorry?
Would you say it's about the erasure of their opinions in history?
It is. I think as we go along in our lives, I think it's important to kind of trace back to our history of our own family, to know that, where it all started, what are our roots, where do we come from. And I think that holds like a lot of importance to her in her practice. So in this work, actually, she's referred to a lot of these photographs that, her mother had kept of her grandmother, and this is her nani. And she spoke about, the fact that how in this particular photograph that they're all standing very straight, just looking into the camera, but she kind of reconstructs it. And she tries to portray that how she wants women to be, rather than how women were back in the 1950s, post-independence. They didn't really have a voice. They weren't able to kind of do what they really wanted to do at that point of time. But imagine if there was a world where women were, able to do what they wanted. They had a voice of their own, and maybe they would have had a lot more freedom, and that's what
true.
Kind of is portrayed in this particular work.
And what's the significance of this woman throwing those sheets of paper in the air?
So, her nani was very inspired by poetry, and she used to read a lot. And that also, I think, it comes down through generations, through Baran as well. And she's very inspired by Urdu poetry, which she brings forward within her work and practice. And you can see that in some of her works as well with the writing. And this is a way of sort of almost rejoicing, sort of embracing what one has or what one enjoys the most, whether it's literature, whether it's, so I think it's a way of kind of embracing the past, embracing their lives at that point of time.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.